I want to welcome a very special guest. It's not his first time on the program by any stretch of the imagination, but it is in a different capacity than it normally is. You know him and you love him, Matthew Foldy.
It is a pleasure to be here now as a congressional candidate in a newly Republican district, about 20 minutes outside of the studio.
This is, so you remember Foldy because he was an incredible investigative journalist who worked at the Free Beacon and broke incredible amount of really important stories, doing the work that the journalists across, quote unquote, journalists across this great city refused to do. Things like telling us that Democrats had not shown up for work in 2 years because of COVID and continued to not. Things like Jennifer Granholm and where her investments might be. All stuff that was just like super important news that nobody looked into except you because you kind of have that good government mindset. And now you decide to bite off a very big chunk and you're running for Congress.
Yes, sir. We, thanks to the governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan, he sued the Democrats in Annapolis over one of the most egregious partisan and racial gerrymanders, and he won in court. It was the first Democratic gerrymander to be overturned this entire cycle, and we won. And now, at the end of the red line, 5 minutes from the Shady Grove Metro Station, we have a Republican district in Maryland. And I realized this is a huge opportunity to flip a House seat, and no one seemed to really want to do it. So on the last day, I drove over to Annapolis, paid $100, and became a candidate for Congress.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, here's when I knew you were ready to run for Congress. Foldy came into the esteemed HQ of the Ruthless Variety program and had a bunch of us sitting around the table who've been doing this for years and basically laid out, what if I did this? And we proceeded to spend the next hour telling you all the horrible things that could happen by running for Congress and trying to dissuade you from even taking this up because of our experiences, right, over the years. And you listened patiently, you offered some thoughts, and at the end, the next day, I found out you went down and filed. And at that moment, I was like, okay, I think he's ready. If you know everything there is to know, and you still want to do it, that means you're ready.
Look, you guys are Senate people, and I don't hold it against you.
Oh, Jesus, we do House stuff,
you
too.
Do. Oh, fair. But look, Smug, he tweeted this a little bit after I announced when I was talking with him about it. He said, Foldy, you're very smart. You should go make a lot of money. And I said to him, but how does that help people? And then he said, okay, all right, this is actually the kind of person that we need and want in government. But look, everything you said, you guys are the best. But I think things have been going very well. We just rolled out our 4th House Republican endorsement. So far, Don Bacon in Nebraska, Marionette Miller-Meeks in Iowa, Claudia Tenney in New York, and Mike Waltz in Florida have all endorsed my campaign.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you're really rolling, man. I saw those endorsements. The Waltz one that came through, I love that guy. That's a huge endorsement.
And we have Republicans from around the country and all across the state of Maryland who have said, this is exactly who we need and want in Congress, and this is who is going to be able to flip this House seat. So this month, I did a week-long tour of my opponent's closed and locked offices. My opponent, David Trone, in my mind, is the most egregious example of an absentee Democrat. Everyone, and we've talked about this on the program, the Hawaii congressman, David Trone lives 20 miles from the Capitol in Potomac, Maryland. He has never lived or voted in the 6th congressional district that he represents in Congress. He skipped 25% of the votes last year alone.
Unbelievable.
So he can't even be bothered to work. And one of the other stories
He lives 20 minutes away. He can't get there?
He can't show up because he is running Total Wine, which he founded and is the CEO of, and he continues to run from Congress. Total Wine is open 7 days a week.
He does a lot better running Total Wine than he does as a congressman, I'll tell you that much.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the difference between David Trone, Total Wine CEO, and David Trone, alleged congressman for Maryland's 6th congressional district, is stark. Total Wine is open 7 days a week. David Trone responded after I went to his Frederick County office, and then his Allegheny County office, and then his Montgomery County office, and then his Washington County office. David Trone responded. He called my tour misinformation.
But listen, I watched the video of your tour where you went to the door and pulled on the handle and it didn't open. It was entirely dark inside. I don't know how that's misinformation.
You could have gone to a Total Wine at that same time. He has 0 Total Wines in our district. You could have gone to a Total Wine and been treated warmly. You could have bought a 30 rack. You could have gotten White Claw, whatever it is you wanted. His government offices that we pay for have been closed for 2.5 years. And he said it's misinformation because in Cumberland, His office is open 1 day a week.
1 day a week. Is that now, did he try to defend it by saying that this is like a COVID thing? Or is it at this point, it strikes me as incredibly disconnected with the American people, particularly in Maryland 6, to try to say that you're somehow operating on COVID rules 2 years after when everybody else has had to go to work.
It's disingenuous and disconnected from how David Trone runs Total Wine.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he literally, his company is open 7 days a week. His offices are closed 5 days a week. And he had Joe Biden over at his mansion in Potomac for a maskless super spreader fundraiser, and all of his government offices are closed. So he simply doesn't care about this job. There are pictures other Republican members of Congress have posted of David Trone on Zoom meetings from his living room. He lives 20 minutes from the Capitol. He cannot even be bothered to show up to work. So you're right, it's disingenuous with how business owners in Cumberland, run their businesses. But it's also disingenuous with how David Trone runs his own business. And until I jumped in the race, no one had ever made this point. And this is true with Democrats across the country. Now I'm focusing on David Trone. But once I get to Congress, I'm going to continue doing the work I did as an investigative reporter, whether it was looking into the Energy Department, the Commerce Department, House Democrats, Senate Democrats, Department of Education, Democratic mega donors, whether it's George Soros or Hans Wyss, who, Smug loves talking about here.
Yeah. And he pronounces it correctly, I think.
That's true. These people fear Congressman Matthew Foldy. They know that what I've been able to expose as a reporter is already very bad for them. But what I can do with congressional subpoena power, once we take the House majority by winning seats like this Republican district in Maryland, it's going to be very bad for them.
Oh, it's got to be. I mean, look, what you're willing to dive into and uncover just as a journalist is an easy transition to the job of a House Republican majority next year, right? I mean, what we need more than anything in the House of Representatives next year, if we're going to get the majority back, God willing, is that oversight piece of it. And I'm hard pressed to find anybody who does that better than you.
Well, this is exactly what I want to do on day one. As I've been talking with voters on the trail, my day one commitment to voters in this district is every single one of these offices is being reopened 5 days a week. And my staff and I are going to go through personally the casework that's been sitting there for 2 years. During the David Trone closed office tour, I talked about whether it was farmers, veterans, business owners, and even Boy Scouts of Frederick County who wrote to David Trone last year. Boy Scouts. He could not even be bothered to respond to them as part of their Scouts project.
Are you kidding me?
He simply doesn't even want this job. Let's do him a favor and fire him from this so he can run Total Wine full time, because that's actually what's important to him.
Well, the funny thing about this dude is he first came on my radar because he has more money than God. And he basically bought his congressional seat to begin with, right? If you live anywhere in the Washington, D.C. DMA, you know that D.C. broadcast is not the cheapest thing in the world. And so there are candidates that run in Northern Virginia and run in Maryland that sort of occasionally are able to afford enough to get some ads on there. And this dude just blanketed it it felt like forever. And so like he was the only name that they knew. It wasn't like he was particularly cut out to be a congressman. It was like he just threw up as much television as he possibly could, and the name recognition alone coasted him into victory. What you're saying now is people know or are going to know based on your campaign what this guy's actually doing for them, which is nothing.
David Trone is actually the most expensive loser in all of House history because he spent about $15 million in 2016 to lose to Jamie Raskin.
Well, that's right. He did it twice. I remember that now. Now I know why I felt like it was on the air.
It felt like he was on, but then he went completely off the air in 2020 because we didn't seriously challenge him. Now we are seriously challenging him. And the fact that he responded to my Trone office closure tour by admitting that he's closed shows he's completely not ready for prime time. He's used to buying this seat or not running a serious general election, and now he won't have the opportunity because we're actually going to be the most serious general election opponent he's ever faced.
Well, you've also got a lot of young people across D.C. very excited about your candidacy. Clearly, you had a big following going into this race, which, it's not surprising that people are behind you. But I think they're catching on to that, right? I mean, what you've done in the course of how long you've been in this race?
About 3 weeks.
In 3 weeks, you've gone from the Matthew Foldy they know and love as like wearing the quirky jackets and all that to like a very serious congressional candidate. It's fantastic.
This is a serious race. We have serious times, and David Trone could not care less about them. Whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, an independent, a communist, anarchist, libertarian, and you write to David Trone, it will never be read. It will sit there gathering dust in a pile of mail because he doesn't care about you. And so this is an incredibly serious time. And so you're right. I am now wearing jeans and khakis every day.
Yeah, you look
That's
like
fine.
a real professional. I mean, sort of a real professional.
It's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
A relaxed, casual professional.
I will be the best dressed member of Congress. I can say that pretty confidently, and that's why I'm excited that
That's
Mike
in the
Waltz,
eye of the beholder, by
Mike
the
Waltz
way.
endorsed me. Mike Waltz is a great congressman from Florida who also rocks the Star Spangled Banner jacket that I do, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why he was excited to endorse me is we'll have a Star Spangled Jacket caucus of at least 2 coming in, so I was happy to roll out his endorsement because he's also an American hero. And one of the other reasons why I'm in this race is, you're right, I was working as a reporter, and I exposed massive corruption across the administration. And congressional Republicans in the House and Senate have actually launched multiple investigations into the Biden administration, whether it's the Department of Energy, whether it's the military giving $1.6 billion to China as part of COVID tests that are from China. Mm-hmm. And an example of sort of where you run into your limitations as a reporter is I went to an event that Jennifer Granholm, our Secretary of Energy, did in Maryland. And I walked up to her after she was done speaking. I intentionally dressed very casually so she would assume I'm a liberal. She sees I'm 25. I announced to her that I'm a reporter, so she, of course, assumes I'm a liberal.
Right.
And I say, Secretary Granholm, Matthew Foldy here, I would love to ask you about who you sold your 242,000 shares of non-public Proterra stock to for a self-disclosed profit of $1.6 million. And her staff swarmed on me.
Oh, I imagine.
They said, have you reached out to us about this? I said, yes, multiple times. They said, you've emailed the Department of Energy? I said, yes, multiple times. Never heard back. And they said, we'll get back to you. That was last summer. So on day one, I am writing to Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm, and I am saying,
Same question.
Congressman Matthew Foldy here.
I love that.
Same question that I asked you in person last summer and in email correspondence at least a dozen times. I'd like to know who is financially influencing your decisions following my reporting. And that's one of the things that on the campaign trail, voters are very excited about is we have a congressman who from day one is going to be ready to get to work, both on the constituent services that have been completely neglected by David Trone and also oversight that Democrats are completely unwilling to do of the Biden administration. And I say they're unwilling to do it because they're not working.
Yeah.
So, and I can send you the audio of me talking about this with Granholm, and you guys can put it in here. I'm happy to let you guys play that. It's insane. Her staff descend on me like defensive linemen.
Oh yeah,
ready to murder me.
That's Democrats don't think they have to answer questions, right? But they do if you've got congressional pin.
And that's the thing is, congressional subpoena power can be a lot more powerful than the First Amendment. Yeah. And that's something, I mean, there's so many problems with the Biden administration. So having a reporter, an investigative reporter who knows where to start and whose reporting has already sparked multiple congressional investigations of the Biden administration is going to be a massive assist. And you're right, everyone in the D.C. metro area has probably heard David Trone's ads on TV. Everyone in the D.C. metro area can also come volunteer for my campaign. And every minion around the country, we've already made thousands of voter contacts across the district. You can phone bank.
Well, so this is what
Hawaii
I want to get
and beyond.
This is what I want to get into, because you've been able to capture this energy that people have for you and now for your congressional campaign, and you've used it in a way that I just find very impressive, because now you've got literally droves of people walking doors. You're 3 weeks in. Like, generally speaking, that takes a little while to set up. You're doing it like day one.
We want to win this race. It is an R+1 district. We have no business losing. And my friends understand it, whether they're in Republican politics in Maryland, whether they're friends of mine from Maryland, friends of mine from D.C. They understand we need to win this race. It's the only House race. It's the only election within 100 miles of D.C. where you can spend an afternoon and help actually flip a seat. You can sit on the Red Line Metro. We'll pick you up at Shady Grove and drop you in a neighborhood in Gaithersburg or Germantown to knock some doors.
I love it. So tell me a little bit about, because for a young man, you have the sense of public service that not every young man has, right? And I imagine a lot of your peers, although more than most in this area, because they're involved in government in one form or fashion, many of them anyway, you have to have a history of this. And I know your family's been in public service. I mean, is this, you born with this? Like, is this something that you develop, like at the kitchen table, you talk about these things growing up?
Well, look, obviously when we win in November, I'll be the first Gen Z congressman, which is an interesting phenomenon. But I think a lot of people, at least my friends in my age cohort, are actually very motivated to change the country for the better. And I think we are not willing to wait, to be 65 years old and say, all right, we're going to, run for state assembly. We want to change the country now, because Biden and House Democrats and Senate Democrats are destroying our future right now, especially with Biden inflation. How can you be in your late 20s and say, I'm going to buy a house now? They are crushing our present and our future. So, if we want to wait 25 years to go do this the normal way, I mean, who knows what our economy is going to look like in 25 years? They're turning our currency into the Venezuelan dollar before our very eyes. So you're right. I owe all of this to my parents, who were great public servants. They were diplomats. They got actually eloped in Ethiopia as they were both working in the foreign service. And they've been huge inspirations to me as really showing what public service should be. My mom was a very senior administration official in the Trump administration. My dad worked in the Senate. And then when I was in college, actually in Chicago, the Chicago Republican Party recruited me to run for office there when I was 19. So now I'm 25. I feel like I'm incredibly old. And they recruited me, and the Democrats were horrified at the fact that I could win elected office. And the reason I say that is they recruited a fake candidate to run against me for ward committee man in Chicago's 5th Ward. And we took them to court. We said, you are committing rampant ballot fraud. Every single one of your signatures is fake, false, forged, what have you. And so the Chicago GOP or Illinois GOP lawyer said to my opponent, you can withdraw or go to prison. And so, I mean, look, we took the fight for election integrity to courts, because in that job that I was running for, you appoint Republican election judges and you can disqualify Democratic election judges.
Oh, interesting.
And when you're in the south side of Chicago, where there are a ton of cemeteries where they roll their people out every 2 years, they say, hey guys, come on up, go to the polls, we'll put you back in the ground after. You need, oversight and accountability. So going back to when I was 19, I became the youngest elected official in Chicago history. And then obviously, fast forward now, running to be the youngest member of Congress, which is very cool and exciting. But what makes me sort of excited to wake up every day is knowing that we can actually get Western Maryland an actual representative who will work full time. I had to resign my job to run for Congress. And what I tell voters on the campaign trail is I resigned my job because David Trone quit on us. He quit representing us. And whether you're in Garrett County or Gaithersburg, we all have something in common, which is we have a representative in Congress who could not care less about us.
Yeah, no kidding. So as you're out talking to people, and look, I think the constituent service thing is something that most people miss. I'm glad you plugged that in as like a number one priority. We all understand the oversight thing, which you're particularly gifted at. As you're talking to people, I got to imagine there's a lot of anxiety about the economy, a lot of anxiety about inflation. I mean, what are you hearing from folks?
It is, every time we knock on a voter's door, we ask them what's important to them and then talk about me and my campaign. It's the economy. It is the economy. It is Bidenflation. It is inflation. And inflation is an incredibly regressive tax, especially for people on fixed incomes like my Naimama, who, minions are very aware of, as the fashionable member of the Foldy family. But when you're living on fixed income, inflation destroys the checks that you receive. So the Democrats are crippling our economy, and whether you're in Allegheny County or Frederick County, it is the economy and Democrats' unwillingness to take responsibility for the fact that they voted for $2 trillion that paid for Black Lives Matter Plaza down the street from us, paid for tree equity, and devalued our currency and is destroying our economy. So we need a huge investigation into the trillions of dollars of bogus COVID relief spending the second that we take over Congress. But yeah, what the Democrats are doing to small businesses, the over-regulation that they are doing is absolutely insane. I heard from a voter that they put in over 100 regulations on dishwashers and washing machines.
Jeez.
I mean, the priorities of the Biden administration are completely backwards. We see that on a domestic side, and we see it on a foreign policy side, where they are aiding and abetting our enemies and abandoning our allies by the day. The Biden administration is all of the failures from the Obama administration, who could not sell out and work at Amazon, and we see the disastrous consequence of that. They're trying for the Guinness Book of World Records of most countries lost in the shortest amount of time, right? I mean, we obviously saw Afghanistan fall. We saw Ukraine invaded but hasn't fallen. I mean, China is salivating at what's going on here. The Biden administration is sprinting to give Iran nuclear weapons. The Biden administration was paying for Russian oil as Russia was invading Ukraine. And finally, after some pushback, they said, you know what, we're going to just buy Venezuelan oil now instead of drilling in America. In Western Maryland, even, they hate American energy. The Department of Energy that we've talked about is one of the worst culprits for this. It is the Department of Energy does not believe in energy.
That's a tough thing. It's like, kind of what you do here.
But this is
Department of Energy.
Everything is backwards. The Department of Justice does not believe in justice here under the Biden administration. The Department of Education is the Department of Indoctrination. The Department of Education says that if you're a parent concerned about schoolwork,
you're a terrorist.
You're a domestic terrorist.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we have actual terrorists flowing across the southern border. We had a foreign-born Islamic jihadist hold a synagogue hostage in Texas on a live stream, and the Biden administration has never once said this guy was motivated to kill Jews and free a terrorist down the road named Lady Al-Qaeda.
Unbelievable. Well, and now the news about George W. Bush and the threat against his life. Same thing, right? I mean, he was here I think he was seeking asylum. His asylum claim was being processed.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, geez. What I like about you is you've got a lot of layers to this onion, right? You not only are concerned about the domestic stuff that is surrounding all of us, which I think probably leads most people to run for Congress, but you also have that background in foreign policy and national security where you're bringing that into play too, which most congressmen, it takes them several years after being elected to sort of get and understand that. You kind of get that with the package.
Look, I mean, this campaign is the whole package, and it's a large part due to the support that we have from Maryland voters and from people around the country who have been helping out, whether it's via endorsing me as other national security leaders like Robert O'Brien was one of my earliest endorsements.
Great endorsement.
And, we're rolling out massively high caliber endorsements from both national people as well as people in the district. The mayor of Mount Airy is very excited to endorse and vote for me. And so we're trying to unite both all of Maryland GOP as well as the National Republican Party in saying that this is a race we need to prioritize. And an example of that is last week, the Maryland Republican Party and I did a joint David Trone office closure event outside of Trone's closed and locked Frederick office. So because of the work I did as a reporter and now because of the work I'm doing as a congressional candidate, we're seeing Maryland take a national lead and a national role, which is something that I think as a Maryland native, we are often just viewed as this piggy bank for people to come in, take our donations, and then leave. Whereas here, we actually have the opportunity to elect a Montgomery County native, a Maryland guy, to Congress in a Republican seat.
And it's very doable. I mean, like you said, this is a D+1.
R+1.
It's now R+1.
Literally, this is a Republican district.
It is now a Republican district, right? I mean, which correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't feel like a lot of people were talking about that before you started running.
No one was talking about David Trone, and that's what he likes. Because like all of these Democrats, they like hiding in the shadows.
Yeah. So tell me this: you're a fun guy, right? We've all had a lot of fun. Are you going to make this fun? Is this going to be fun for everybody? Are we going to laugh and have fun along the way?
Oh, we are having a spectacular time. I mean, look, the David Trone office closure tour, in my unbiased opinion, is one of the most unique and innovative earned media events of the 2022 midterms. So we're already having a good time. This is why everyone should door knock and phone bank for us. But
yeah, that's because that's the key, right? I mean, you're bringing a generational difference. You're bringing a good attitude, obviously the expertise that we just discussed. But what we try to do on the Variety program, which you're intimately aware of, is to try to make this fun for people, right? Because nobody wants to get yelled at all day and read the Constitution and everything else. It's like, okay, you should be able to get involved in your community and make it a better place and have a few laughs along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, this is fun, and that's why we're doing events like we did an open bar fundraiser for young
An
Republicans in
open
DC.
bar fundraiser is exactly what I'm talking about.
Not only that, Josh, we did an axe throwing happy hour in Cumberland. We're doing events that this is not your father's Republican Party. It's not your grandfather's Republican Party. Like, we are ready to take over this party. And young Republicans in this district and across the country have reached out to me and said they are so excited to see one of our own doing this in a race that is so winnable. And once I win, I'm going to be one of the biggest assets to young Republicans who are looking to run for office for the first time, for the second time themselves, because we need to change the perception of the Republican Party into thinking that it looks like people like Joe Biden. And no, it's actually people like you and me who are having a grand old time and also making a huge difference in our communities.
You know, you got to get the old man Duncan to shotgun a beer at one of your next rallies.
I'll work on him at the next open bar fundraiser we do. We can try and get him to shotgun.
I mean, that's how we open every one of our shows. We might as well lend his expertise.
We'll enlist the new father.
Okay, all right.
Maybe we can get the younger Duncan to do it also.
Yeah, we'll get the whole Duncan clan.
I mean, look, you can't get baby formula, so you can at least give him a Miller Lite.
That's exactly right. And you're going to be a seasoned vet by the time his kids get into it, right?
And look, if they need internships, we're taking internships remote and in person from around the country for this campaign.
I love it. I love it. All right. So here's one thing you've not done on the Variety program.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to answer the 3 questions.
I'll answer them.
I mean, this is a different... Can you believe this? Look how much this has changed, Foldy.
Look how much you and I have both grown up since the program started.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We have all put a few miles under these tires.
And it's really expensive doing that in Biden's America. Gas is absolutely through the roof thanks to policies of House Democrats.
On message.
Yeah.
Absolutely on message. All right. So let's start with the first one.
Do you even want me to? I can just answer them.
Yeah, but I'm going to,
All right.
There has to be a bit of showmanship involved in this, Foldy. I mean, I know you know the ropes, but your last meal on earth, what would it be?
Supporting Maryland businesses, going to Cod High in Bethesda, best Indian restaurant in the world, and Amina Thai in Rockville. All of my friends know I will always eat Thai food or Indian food. So I would get saag paneer. I get the same order every time. 3 orders of saag paneer, 2 orders of vegetable samosas, 1 order of pad thai, of palak chaat with no tomatoes, then get from Amina Thai pad thai with tofu, and then I would dump sriracha and Old Bay and goldfish all over it, put it all together, and that is definitely my last meal, is supporting Maryland businesses with a lot of flavor.
What I like about it is it's very authentic, and I know it's true. What I don't like about it is you probably have the worst food choices of anybody who's ever been on the program.
I will politely reject that assertion from you.
It is
Look, everyone knocks
stunning.
my food taste. No one has ever tried it.
You can't. I mean, if you look at it, you're going to throw up. It's like a dry heave.
We'll agree to disagree on this, but look, for my last meal on earth, I would love all of the co-hosts of Ruthless to join me for it, because we'll probably all be imprisoned together by the DOJ under Biden if we don't defeat him in 2024. I mean, we are first on their target list.
I got to imagine the Variety program's not a favorite at the West.
No.
All right. So here's an interesting question for you, because you have in one form or fashion been involved in public service even before you graduated college, right? If you didn't do that, if this was not a line of work that interested you in the least, and you just had this blue sky of what to do with your life, what would it be?
Smug has made it very clear. I'll always be his assistant. I can be Congressman Matthew Foldy. I'll still be Smug's assistant. So let's take that as a given. I think what I would do is really dive into the world of fantasy football, because I know I couldn't actually work for Tom Brady, but a lot of my friends I met through Comfortably Smug, Top Minion, Fantasy Football.
It was one of the best inventions you ever came up with.
And because I think what that allowed us to do is unite Republicans across the country, which is exactly what we're doing with my campaign for Congress right now. I would do fantasy football on a level we've never seen before.
So I love it. I've gotten to know so many more people because of this process that you've done. That's a great answer.
Yeah, fantasy football commissioner extraordinaire.
I love that. I love that. Okay, I'll accept that answer, and that is one of the better ones.
Thank you.
The third question, and I have no idea where you're coming down on this. It's a thrill of victory, agony of defeat.
I always hate that you use Michael Jordan as the agony of defeat guy when that's clearly Tom Brady.
Oh, I see what you're doing. You're right. He's a very...
I mean, that is... He unretired.
Yeah.
Because he could not stand that he did not go out winning a Super Bowl. That said, I'm thrilled of victory.
It seems like that. That's why I didn't know where you were going to land, because I know your appreciation for the agony of defeat almost more than anyone I know, but you didn't ever seem like an agony of defeat guy.
Look, I'm 25 and I am running to be the youngest member of Congress. You cannot do that unless you are a relentless charging up the hill, come whatever hell or high water is coming your way. And I know we're going to win. I know we're going to do it together. So at the end of the day, it is, on July 19th when we win the primary and on November 8th when we all go to Congress together, it's going to be the thrill of victory for me.
I love this. Foldy, where can people find your campaign? Where can they help financially? Where can they help volunteer?
I love it. So financially, you go to MatthewFoldy.com and you donate, and we appreciate all of the support we've already gotten. And on spending time and energy and effort to elect us, DM me, Twitter, at Matthew Foldy. DM me on Instagram. Matthew
He's very
Foldy.
Accessible.
Unlike David Trone, you can find me.
Yeah, you're very accessible.
And we will take internships from in Maryland, in D.C., part-time, full-time. We can take remote internships from around the country. We're already building out our internship core because young people in particular are very excited about this. But the older folk who I meet on the campaign trail, who I say, oh, you look like a young Republican, they're also excited because they say, wow, you remind me of my grandson. And sometimes they say, I'd never let my grandson anywhere near the levers of power. Or they'd say, my grandson should really be doing what you're doing. But people realize that we need to get David Trone out of office. We need to flip the House. And we need to lay the groundwork for a Republican to win the White House in 2024. So you can donate MatthewFoldy.com. You can email me, Matthew at MatthewFoldy.com. You can DM me, and we will be in touch. And I'm just... It's such a surreal honor to be with you on the program as a congressional candidate for a Republican district outside of Washington, D.C.
This is the first candidate we've grown from within.
That's true.
This is a very big deal.
I cannot thank you guys enough. You guys, I've actually had voters say that they recognize me from the program all the way out in Western Maryland. I mean, the reach of the program is unparalleled. And it's so cool watching you guys just go to the moon and beyond, and I'm excited to be there.
Very kind of you to say we want to help all the way through. Remind us the date of the primary so we can make sure that everybody knows exactly when they are checking their first box for Matthew Foldy.
Well, if you lived in Chicago's Fifth Ward, it'll be your second box if you moved to Maryland. But July 19th, we need all the help that we can get so we can go to Congress together.
July 19th, that's the primary, the first step along the way to an illustrious congressional career of Matthew Foldy. Thanks so much for joining the program.
And unlike David Trone, you guys can come to my office anytime.
I love it.
Thanks guys.
Pal.